You're live.
It is 8:01. Call a regular monthly meeting of September 17, 2025. Michigan County IDA to order. Do roll call.
Burton here.
Leland here.
Kalia here.
Crawford here.
Bulls here.
Woodford here. IDA mission statement. Mission, this is recently revised. Mission of Michigan County Industrial Development Agency is to drive economic growth by providing targeted incentives that strengthen the tax base for job creation, promote clean and or affordable energy solutions for a more sustainable future. First order of business, approval of minutes, August 20, 2025.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Burton moves.
Second.
Mr. Kalia seconds. Any discussion, deletions, additions, subtractions? None, will vote.
Burton aye.
Kalia, aye.
Crawford, aye.
Bulls aye.
Woodford, aye, carries. Financial report, John.
Okay, thank you. We're going to head to page 8, our statement of financial position. We'll start off with current assets. Not really a lot of activity going on this month to go through. We're slowly spending down and checking throughout the year as we pay our bills, things of that nature. Money market and intra-fi go up a little bit due to interest each month. Prepaid stayed the same, and the property and equipment, there's no change in those numbers for the month. Heading down, we're going to go through the payables in just a minute. Do note that the fund balance has no change, and in the net activity, you'll see that change relate to the income statement here. We're going to go over in just a minute. So pretty quiet activity there now, not going on. Any questions on that particular page?
Any questions for John?
Moving forward. Okay, we'll head over to page 9 and the receivables. Really, the receivables here are the monthly billings out to Commerce and DCC for its rent, utility. Two biggest items there are the rent, which is $800 a month, plus I think it was like over $600. So just give you an idea of that are small. We will be.
I'm going to pause there just for a second because we are in a year where we have to negotiate the contracts between the organizations. So in addition to, we have to sit down and determine rent and how we're going to have a different conversation in executive session regarding the early learning center. But we're in the process right now. John is putting together the budget. We have some working sessions. First, the commerce budget, which is predicated somewhat upon the meetings that I have this week with the finance committee. And then after that, it will be what are the percentages of responsibilities for the IDA, the DCC, and Commerce Schenectady. And we're building the case as to what they should be. The contract is up at the end of this year. Let's just come in. That's what it's on.
One thing to note here, and we'll go over this a little bit more when we hit the income statement here next, is Puckett Solar there. That balance for 132.6 is really as the end of last year's number. So we're going to talk about the activity and how that number is going to change here in a little bit. And also, just so you know, there's 6 years left on that. So put together some documentation, number of years left on each one, and cash flow and that kind of thing as well. So we'll go over that in just one more detail next. Next page is the payables. Pretty quiet there, lawn maintenance, and just really the normal bills that we see. Paying Commerce back for admin costs, training, telephone, internet, some of those IT services, things of those nature. It's 928. Those are pretty standard fare that we see every month. Page 11. So a couple things to note here. We'll start off on the August column there. Statement activities, the August column. One of the things here is at East Main Street rent, $1,600. Just so you guys know, for September, that's going to be $1,475. So as we go through that, no, that number is going to be the same. I'm sorry, I was looking at something else there, but yeah, that will be the same 1,600. The one that's going to change is the East Main Street reimbursements there, because we only bill quarterly for the everything regularly, sewer and rent kind of sewer water kind of thing. So that'll change a little bit each time. So you guys will see that. The one part I wanted to bring up when our pilot project fees there, if you head down into that kind of grade box and you head down to Puckett Solar and you head over, you're going to see actual year-to-date 24,758. And that's where we're going to pause a little bit. I don't know if everybody remembers when we got the hybrid payment in, we had to kind of go through and pull that out of income because it really should. We had already recognized the income when the pilot first initiated way back when. Same thing's happening here. So I just got off the phone yesterday with the auditors because I said, why aren't we treating this the same? What's different about this one? And we went through it and it is the same. So what's going to happen next month, you'll see a restatement of that. And what's going to happen is $22,100 is going to go directly to accounts receivable. Remember I told you the accounts receivable will need to be readjusted. The balance of like 2658 will show as the income for the, so that's how it's going to be. Each year will be like that. So if you take the 132.6 and the accounts receivable and divide by 6, you get 22.1. So that kind of gives you the idea of how we're going to handle that. But that will be going to down to $2,600 there, 2658, and the remaining balance will reduce that accounts receivable. So we'll be making that adjustment and making sure going forward. And so what happens is when you recognize all the revenue up front, and then every year you want to send an invoice out, how do you create an invoice? When you create an invoice, it puts something into accounts receivable. So basically what we're going to have to do going forward is we're going to have to create an invoice, mail it, print it, and then reverse the invoice out so that it doesn't mess up the books.
It doesn't have a cash flow, it's just a revenue recognition. You have to recognize the revenue, we have a reasonable expectation to collect it. That's how it works in the private sector, that's how they're telling us you have to do it here. You know you're gonna get that money, you have to recognize that revenue now, and then it doesn't affect cash flow at all.
Well,
we
they're
need to
just-
recognize the revenue.
It won't show up on here as revenue, is what I'm saying. It's just I'm going to create it just to create an invoice and then delete it back out. So it'll be like, you guys won't even know what happened, but I'm just being kind of
You've already
transparent.
recognized that
Because
revenue.
we've already recognized the revenue. We just need to do that to be able to mail them an invoice and then they can pay us. And when that comes in, we'll handle it.
It's exactly the same way consigned sales are working in a large international.
Yeah.
You have a reasonable expectation to collect 80% of your shipments. You could recognize that revenue. You have an obligation to recognize that revenue. You can't wait and then recognize that revenue in one big chunk, which can convey earnings differences, right? So bottom line. I know we're small, but this all should make sense. Simple. John's done a really, really good job getting clarity on it and knowing how to account for it. It is confusing and it can get messy if you don't do it right. So far, he's done a really, really good job. So,
No, thank you.
Yeah, so just so you know, when I do the budget, you don't be surprised when the budget it shows
yeah.
negative, that we're going to lose money. But I'm also doing another section of, okay, what cash flow are going to come in that's going to hit the bank account that will cover those expenses, even though it's not income. And where does that come from? Those sources, we'll add a little something extra to bring clarity to that.
So that seems like that. We need to figure out what to do with that money. We don't need to figure out what to do with that money.
Yeah, so just so everybody's aware on that. Heading down into expenditures, the only thing a little bit different here is under legal expense, that 1485. That's we paid the attorneys for looking at the nuisance properties and how that might be handled. And that was a bill for some of those activities and how they're going to handle that. Heading over to page 12. Again, these are fairly normal activities. 5 Walnut Street there, it's under maintenance, the top line item. That's really their business owner policy for the year. So that's through preferred. That's what that one is there. We had the utilities, the negative on the maintenance is because we received $810 back from the railroad, reimbursing us for paying that out. So we paid it to have it taken care of, and then they reimbursed us. So it's kind of the activity we had on this part of the financials. Any questions?
Any questions for John?
Motion to approve the financials.
Burton moves. Seconds, discussion? Vote.
Burton, aye.
Zeno,
Kalia, I. Crawford, aye.
Woodford, aye, carried.
I'd rather put this out here the last few years, but I do feel now, obviously, we have a very solid grasp on our finances, not just here, but throughout all three funds.
Yeah, super, yes, absolutely. Moving on, John, 19 East Main Street.
Yeah, the asset list. The last time we talked about we had $10,000 worth of content coverage on the contents of this building for the IDA, but 100,000 for commerce that seemed to be a little bit maybe. So we want to do through. So John Holden here went through and did like a baseline estimate of the estimated value of the contents. Now we believe that's low, so that was kind of some chat GPT kind of queries to get some values, but I'm going to get hold of the insurance agent and find out, what's our policy? Is it the actual cash value or is it replacement cost? Because that's going to be the difference of how much we want to insure things for. So
Absolutely.
I want to understand that first. So we believe these are low. It's still greater than the 10,000, but we still believe it's a little bit low. If you had to replace all these chairs and tables and everything, you'd need a little bit more than that to kind of do
What
that.
number did you come up with?
It's like $12,000. I mean, so before we get a lot of details, we kind of want to go through that.
Probably really low.
Yeah, it's really low.
It's a moving target because again, Kyle's gonna give us an update here about the building. We haven't, and again, that's not a point we haven't contemplated, my fault. What do we do during the build? How do we figure out where, should we go downstairs and all that stuff? So all this is gonna be a moving target. We'll have to do this insurance all over again a year from now. Because remember, this early learning center is supposed to be open by November of next year. So all of this stuff will be, like, we have where to put it, storage, can we do, how much work up here needs to be done. So there's just a lot of different things going on.
And sometimes with major construction work, speaking of insurance, just from an insurance standpoint, sometimes it's wise to look at builder's risk policy, they call it.
Okay.
It's some protection during the actual construction if something goes awry.
They have some liability if they bust our television,
Yeah.
but it'll knock a window out, okay. All right, so we'll do that too, but that's just so you know, it's gonna change. It's the point.
So 12,000 total, John? I mean,
Yeah, I think that's low. For example, each one of these chairs, they valued at $75. So the question is,
Every painting, every picture.
obviously that's not replacement cost, right?
So,
Sure.
And so I just want to get with the agent saying, hey, how's this policy modeled? Is it, is it replacement cost? Is it actual cash value? What it is, just so we know what our level of risk is and what would happen. So we should just
I
understand.
mean, sometimes even if you just look at the IT infrastructure, things like audio visual stuff, I mean, you can come up with 12K pretty easy.
And what do you count here? Do you count like, you also, all these are movable pieces, so if these are all destroyed or wrecked or damaged, you get over $12,000 in a minute. Like, I understand, we had Brad all come over here and say, give us some idea what we should do. He said, nothing, like, move it, because all this stuff is timeless. Do as little as you can to change what they've done here.
And on the other question, is that TV, is that owned by Commerce? Is that owned by the IDA?
Right.
And so that's kind of the things that John and I went through and had to take a look at all the assets and break down who owns first, and then we put some values to it, then look at the insurance. So that's.
So we'll hear more about this.
Yeah, once we feel like we've got it to a place we're all comfortable. There's a good starting point. A lot of good work, good starting point.
Makes sense. Okay.
I mean, my office furniture alone is gonna cost more. Well, I'm just kidding. I'm the one who don't want to get rid of these chairs.
We didn't tell you where your new office is yet, Sal, so.
Yeah. We filled, John Holden filled the holes in that, so we can take the glass out. I mean, we're cheap, boy.
Okay, any more on the pilot revenue?
Yeah, we talked about the pilot revenues kind of things. I think we're good there unless there's questions.
Okay, bills and invoices.
We kind of going those around. They're all pretty much the standard bills other than Harris Beach, Merthyr, which we talked about. That was the nuisance there. All the rest are Bainbridge, Guilford one, there's taxes. So
Standard fire.
Note that Harris Beach Merthyr one, also, we'll talk about that in just a minute when we get to the next page. And then Bob knows, we're going to talk about that because Bob helped us be in compliance with some of the things we need to do for our audits. That's just a mileage thing to go out there. So both of those are worth noting just for a conversation to have later.
Talking about school taxes, Everything Bagel, not too long ago, would come to us, or mentioned that they potentially wanted to buy the building outright at this point. Do they still have an interest in that? Have they said anything recently?
They haven't.
They
Yes and no. Kind of put a pin in. We had realized that the lease that they had run out, essentially, it expired, so we needed to develop a new lease. When we approached them with the new lease, there was some questions about the start of Everything Bakery and how the original plan was developed. Their impression, and I'm not sure how much we talk about it here or maybe in an executive session, but.
Yes, we should stop right now and go into.
Yeah,
executive session.
there
We should
there
stop
needs to
right
be
now.
some
We should-
clarification on that we probably should discuss.
We should stop right now and go into executive session.
Yeah, we can cover that.
We can cover that when we go in
We're
later.
talking some other contractual negotiations.
Yeah.
Okay, bills and invoices, can I entertain a motion to approve all?
So moved.
Mr. Galea moves.
Second.
Mr. Foltz seconds, discussion?
Bird eye.
Kalia, aye. Crawford, aye. Bozak.
Woodford, aye, carries. Pilot updates.
Okay, pilot updates. I don't unfortunately have many updates on these, but we'll run down through them and tell you what I do have. The first one, the lifelong agriculture, we had a recent development with that, got a call from the county attorney that specific property was up for tax sale with the Shenango County tax foreclosure auction. That was this past Saturday. We did inform the applicant that property was up for tax sale. Unfortunately, he missed the deadline to register to bid from afar. So he did, I'm not sure what happened on Saturday.
It sold.
It did sell?
I was
Okay.
told yesterday it sold.
He had talked about finding an individual to go in and bid on his behalf, but I wasn't sure on the legality of that. I have not heard from him since, so.
And the county would be in where they're at right now is they would qualify the high bidders over the next few weeks, and then
Kind of go from
essentially in
there.
October, the Board of Supervisors would authorize the transfer of those properties to the successful bidders, whether it be a high bidder or a back bidder if the high bidder were to back out.
Okay.
But there'll be a vetting process over the next few weeks.
Okay.
Of those
Of those,
successful,
okay.
of those high bidders, I should say.
Okay.
I can't say buyers.
Yep, he did do his due diligence since our last meeting. He reached out to the planning department to ask what he needed, and asked for the information from the town of Sherburne. Supervisor, just have a conversation on what would he need to do for Sherburne. Evening Sun did run an article, obviously, I'm sure you saw on that. There was not a lot of great feedback, from the public on that, which is as to be expected, but obviously everything, there's been a pin in it for now until we figure out what goes on with the property.
Yep.
So that makes sense. Norbit, that one is still tied up with attorneys. I don't have anything to report on there. Our attorneys are waiting to hear from Norbit's attorneys. I know they've asked a few times for an update and haven't gotten one, so I don't have an update with that. Payne Solar, they had told me they would have an updated application for our September meeting. Got an email from them earlier this week that they obviously did not do one and hope to have it for the October meeting. So that has been a monthly ritual, so we'll kick that off to October.
Shane, they've continued to work on that, right? We've discussed that at the planning board meetings at least once since the last conversation we've had with them live. So I believe it's still
They're
in
active,
process. Yeah, there's
yeah, they're
activity
actively
going
working on it. It's
Yeah,
just a
exactly.
matter of,
Thank
yeah.
Yeah, it's not just hanging out there in the
No.
boat. And again, keep that thought in mind when we get to some of these conversations regarding pilots and legal bills.
Principal Holding Group, we are tied up with attorneys there also, and with the Principal Holdings attorneys specifically. Our attorneys had sent them all the paperwork back in May. We had yet to receive a response back from their attorney on any sort of thing related to the pilot.
I'm sure, and I don't think there's any big rush for them to take possession of that building until they're ready to start the construction on it, because then they'll assume the tax liability going forward. So, but I also don't think they fully contemplated that once they're ready to go, there's multiple steps that still have to occur. And so they can't go until they have ownership of that building. But because the way in which some of these things were handled with the DCC, there's been a lot of latitude allowed to how this project has moved forward. Not as much latitude since we've been engaged, but I'm going to tell you that I'm going to bring it to the DCC, and my guess is that no matter what, they can't start construction. They can't do anything until they own that building. and they go home again. So, and it's with their lawyer. I saw their lawyer last night, and, you know, he sheepishly said, I know I can't talk to you right now because, you know, you're mad at me. I'm not mad at you. I'm just telling you, everybody's gonna be mad at me. And you can't put a shovel in the ground, because the governor wants to come here on October 23rd. She wants to say, hey, I am trying to help upstate New York, and she has. She said, whatever you want to think about her politics, we benefited from over $100 million worth of investment in our hospital and other projects that she got going around out here. She wants to come here and say, hey, Shenango County's got stuff going. It'd be cool if one of them was the DRI project, but I don't think that's happening on October 23rd.
I have stressed to this applicant that obviously there's a process to closing on the pilot, and then there's another process on closing on the building. I think it was under the impression that those things kind of went hand in hand, but they don't. So there is still some time there before we complete that task. And I've asked them to put some pressure on their attorney to get that ball rolling. So hopefully in this next month, we'll have some progress there.
And they're concurrent, they're not, they're consecutive, because they can't have the purchase agreements contingent upon the pilot agreement. So it's not like, okay, I can do one, then we can have, both of our attorneys are ready to go. Their attorneys, it's active, it's just contractual stuff.
Okay,
We can part that job over there, he's probably, like, pay a lot of money over there, not what you're making here.
new business.
But I'd miss your company, Sal.
Yeah, sure, I'm sure you would. First, we'll have Tyler go through, and again, you guys hear what's going on with the pods, there's some other things, and a couple of them I'll give you as part of our new business that are happening quickly as we go on here. But first, why don't we have Tyler go through some of the work that we have done since the last meeting. And again, some of that isn't new because we did it right away after the audit, but a lot of this activity occurred because if somebody asked about it, like anything else, if we don't ask it, we don't measure it, frankly, we've got 100 million things to do. Tyler's doing, 999 of them. So the fact that we got Barb to help us and John Axel will be here to help with some of this stuff. Trust me, Tyler's doing the bulk of this work, and I'll let him walk us through the updates on this.
Okay, so audit recommendation, and thanks, Brian, for bringing this up because I felt like this kind of, I don't want to say fell by the wayside, but we hadn't looked at it in a while. So bringing it back up for conversation was a good idea because we do have a few more things we need to accomplish here to be completely compliant. But we'll just run down through the recommendations here quickly and then give you an update as to where we're at with them, and then have any questions, that's fine. Recommendation 1 was fully implemented. That's our UTEP policy, which we all know we adopted and created. We've been following that right along with pilot applications. Recommendation 2 was based on the cost benefit analysis. As you know, we did create that new SBA table that I've shared with us in the last few, kind of a little bit easier to read. We are still using I do complete the old worksheet just because that specific worksheet has been looked at by New York State Comptroller's Office and is approved as a CBA. Ultimately, I would like to update that to kind of fit the table that I created just so everything kind of meshes together so everything's a little bit easier to read. I haven't gotten that far yet, but both documents are being completed every time an applicant comes in. Recommendation 3 was the capital investment tracking. Again, when we send out our annual questionnaire, we do ask questions about capital investments. We really don't have a lot of current pilots that do capital investments. I think this past year we had 1. Again, we just verified that information is accurate and complete. If there has been any data missing related to those things, we have followed up with the project manager just to ensure that we have everything that we need for that. So I'm feeling comfortable with that recommendation. Recommendation 4, energy generation. We do obviously ask again in our annual questionnaire for energy companies to tell us how much energy they are producing. They are sending that information. The one hole that we're missing is they are hesitant to send documentation on proof of that energy generation. So again, that's just following up with energy companies to ensure that they send that information along. We have followed up, but we will follow up again. And that part of that is I'm not sure if they fully understand sometimes I think they're hesitant to do it because I'm not sure they want to share that information for one, but it's also tough, especially with these energy companies, to find the correct contact for the correct information you need. So we kind of bounce around with different folks trying to collect some of that information. But
It is there room in the pilot agreement to compel them to provide it from a contractual perspective?
Yeah,
Or is it in there already?
You know, so really, and John, Axel, and I have talked about this, a long-term goal, I think, overall, is to really look at our application and our procedure every time an application comes in, to make sure that we are explaining all of this ahead of time. Because I'm not sure that I think it's in there, Lou, but I don't know that it's bold or clearly stated. And our office isn't necessarily telling folks, well, hey, make sure you do this and do that at the time of application comes in. So I do think that's a long-term goal, is to make sure that we have that all. Our application really ultimately needs to be looked at probably and updated anyway, and to include some of that information, but that would be, again, down the road, hopefully, as we get things moving and grooving here.
Yeah, as Lou said, probably to put some teeth in it.
Yeah.
If there were some provisions in the actual pilot agreement itself that would compel that, i.e., if you fail to do some of the required reporting, you're putting your pilot at risk.
Right.
What's really hard is you could have things spread throughout the agreement. And what we've been talking about is pulling it into a single one-page document that says, here are your annual commitments. You need to, I'm not saying you need it for all these, if we need a certificate of insurance, if we need that there's going to be an annual pilot payment, if there's going to be proof of the energy generator, just all these things on an easy checklist that they know and they sign off additionally that these are additional expectations other than just cutting a check. Right. There is more that you need to do.
Probably
It's just not real clear, and I think that creates confusion, and then it's hard to get through.
So why don't we take it as an action item, John Holden, we're all in agreement, that by December, we'll have worked with our attorneys to come up with, we'll present a new application, thinking that we can start with that in 2026, right? Gives us a chance that by October, if we can give them, I mean, I don't know how long it will take them, but these guys need to do some work, say what John's describing, what do we want to have on that, and then get it to our attorneys and say, memorialize that compared to what we have. If we can get it to you by November, great, but no later than December, so that we can adopt it for 2026.
But I think John has a good point as far as a bullet list of requirements. That bullet list could also have citations of where that requirement resides.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly, if you're looking for something enforceable, a pilot agreement that's signed by both parties would be enforceable more so than the application itself.
Agreed, so put it in the pilot as well, so look at the contract as well,
Or
right?
find if
Makes
some of those provisions are already in the
That makes
agreement.
sense.
And maybe
Just
make
makes
it part
tight.
of the
Make sure it's
pilot
enforceable
agreement.
once they
you know.
sign on, correct? Makes sense to me. Now, what I want to make sure is, and Lou, you'll help us with this, because again, I want you guys to make sure what I really don't like to do is put something in there, because we did this to DCC until recently. We say, okay, if you don't pay us, this is what we're going to do, and then we selectively did that. We didn't say, okay, we're going to rescind your pilot. We said we're going to do that. We have to make sure we couch it in a way that says we're actually going to follow through with it, or else the document is being.
Yeah, and what you may find, and Lou, certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but what you may find is if we've been using the same or similar pilot for some period of time, some of those provisions as far as reporting requirements may already be there.
Right.
And it's just a matter of like John says, highlighting them and citing them.
And the reason being is these companies transfer. So what happened on the last one we struggled with is this company bought out this company. They didn't share this other document with them. They didn't even know it existed. So then we had to go get the other document, proved it was signed by somebody, send it in before they pay us, where if it was all part of the pilot, it'd be right
Woman had
there.
no idea what we were talking about. And she was incredibly patient, but like any large company, not paying a bill till she got something to track it back to, right? So this is a great point, a great conversation, and we will take that on. I'm sure we could probably put like a small group together, John Holden, we'll figure out how to do this, but with Lou and John Axtell and Tyler, we'll get together, have a recommendation, RC, for you and Lou, and get you together once these guys have had a chance to go through and say, what are those provisions, and how do they have the right amount of teeth in them, and then let's just give it to our attorneys, the things that we want to have changed.
So we knew from the time this recommendation was made that this was going to be a thorn to try to get that information. And the first group that we had in here applying for solar power pilot, after this recommendation, we asked them about giving up that number on an annual basis, and they didn't want to. They were very hesitant. They basically said, we're not gonna give you the exact number. That's proprietary. So I don't know if other IDAs are able to get that information. Do we have to make that information public if we receive it? Right? So could we, make them a promise, for lack of a better term, that that information would be kept private? Can we legally do that as a public entity?
That's a question for the IDA's lawyers.
Yeah.
Whether you can shield something under FOIL. I know in my former life, we did all sorts of reporting that made me a bit uncomfortable, but I worked with the corresponding government entity to make sure that it wasn't gonna be subject to a FOIL, application. So again, I'm not a FOIL guru, and hopefully IDA's lawyers can, guide us through that. But to your point, I know often, information is provided to government and it can't be FOILed and released to the public.
And I may be surprised at this, and we'll ask all these questions as we look at trying to make this thing more actionable. We put our contracts together, but again, John Pisak, that guy who's been doing this for a long time at the Herkimer County IDA, this is the truth, he scoffed at that audit report from the IDA because he said these are impossible for us to adhere to because they change hands too many times and people don't know what's going on and you guys can't be held accountable for that. So these audits, and this is why, again, I'm not, this is the truth, that's what I said. Our auditors wanted to give us on the right track, you're doing the right thing, because some of this stuff isn't going to be as actionable as we'd like it to be. That's why I want to make sure we build the language into the pilot that it says, we're going to stop your pilot if we've done everything, if we choose to, right? Or however we decide we want to say that, right? Because again, I'm going to tell you guys, it'll be very hard to track this, not based on just our experience, but based on a guy who's been doing this for a long time. There was 6 people that looked at the idea.
I think too, that when they were here, the auditors, at the end of the day, they just want to see that we're trying.
We're trying.
And I think as long as we had a documentation in the paper trail to prove that, then I'm comfortable with what we've been doing with that, because we are trying to get the information. I can't, other than going to their office and asking for the piece of paper, I can't.
And when we asked what were repercussions if we couldn't do these things, and both of those auditors, one of whom lives in Greece, says, really nothing. I mean, they're just gonna keep telling you to keep trying, and that's what we want you to do, because we don't want to discourage these completely. So I'm not trying to just abdicate our responsibility, but I want to set reasonable expectations of what we'll be able to deliver. Remember, these pods generate a lot of revenue for the county, otherwise they'll go someplace else.
Honestly, I would have been shocked if the current status said, they've given us that
Got it.
information.
You know exactly. Okay,
So, yeah, no, but we're in good shape.
We're trying.
Yeah.
All right, moving along here, recommendation 5, job creation and retention. Again, with the annual questionnaire that came back, we were able to compare that job creation and retention numbers currently with current pilots with their original applications. Everyone is in compliance with that. Our new accountants also asked for that information in a really nice Excel spreadsheet, so we have documentation on that twice. So I'm feeling good about that one. Recommendation 6, sales tax exemptions. We do again ask this question in our annual questionnaire. We had several of our current pilots that needed to provide their ST 340 forms. I would say that we not necessarily have tracked those against the original applications to confirm no overages. I would need to look into that a little bit further just to make sure that we are doing that and have checked that off the box. So that one I would say is still a work in progress. Recommendation 7, mortgage tax exemptions. We have only a few projects that took advantage of the mortgage tax exemption. Again, we probably need to develop a hard procedure on verifying that was properly reported with the county. So that we need to create probably a procedure with the county to ensure that those were billed and used as what they were intended to do. So still some work to do on that one as well. Recommendation 8, the payment in lieu of taxes billing. There was a lot of confusion in this one at the time of the audit, because we were kind of unclear from our office what we were supposed to do. However, one step that we were not doing, and we still need to kind of develop a hard procedure with this, is we need to make sure that obviously they're paying their tax bills. We get the pilot payments here in our office, and then they obviously pay the county the taxes. We need to ask for verification, actually need to ask for proof from that. There has been some changes over in the county tax office, and obviously we've had a change here in our finance office. So I think now that things have kind of settled, we need to sit down and develop a hard procedure on how we're gonna do that. And really, it's just asking for documentation from the folks over at the county office building for the information on that. We don't have many current pilots out there, so it really shouldn't be that cumbersome, but this one is still, we need to establish a clear procedure moving forward on how we want to accomplish that.
That's a good idea. Especially with some of the recent changes.
Yes.
You sent out.
Recommendation 9, the administrative services contract. This one, they had claimed that and we had redone the agreement right before these auditors came back. But they did say there are some holes in it. We have not done anything with that, so what we'll do is I'll get that over to our legal counsel at BSK just to see what holes are missing. There is no information in the audit as to what was missing and what isn't missing, so I want to at least send it over to Tom and Matt at BSK, have them review it, see if there is, what is missing, and so we can get the proper language to get in there. That's an easy fix. We haven't done that yet, though, and I will get moving on that one.
It's the right time to do
Yeah,
it,
pretty
and
quickly.
consider what we're gonna do with the next contract.
Yeah, exactly.
We could change it till the next contract anyway.
I mean,
Right,
right.
you can't fix it
Right.
till that.
We're gonna do it now, and we'll do it, for sure, I guarantee you.
The last recommendation is on training and on board trainings. I know we have, sent out some information on potential trainings. I don't know, Taylor, you completed training this past year. So I probably need to come up with a system on just tracking who's done what and who needs to do things as year to year comes. But we'll work on that as well.
I'll find a way to be able to bring training to us more efficient.
And I think, just trying to find more opportunities out there to do it.
There's better ways, probably more efficient ways for your time than to have you guys go to Ithaca or go to, those economic development conferences are very good, and if people have the time to do them, I think it really is beneficial, because you do, and I'm gonna have John Axel go, and all of us in our staff is gonna go, I've gone, they really do teach you how IDAs are being utilized elsewhere. That's where I met John Beeson, when they go, what are you talking about? You're looking at housing. I thought you just worked on pilots. Like, I mean, really, I had no idea. So like, these seminars really are put on by New York State to really try to educate you, and you get a training class. But I do want us to be compliant from a training perspective. But if there are one of those IDA academies that you see again, Del, is that what you went to? Did you go to the one-day training? Or did you go to the IDA academy?
It was ABO,
Okay, it was different then,
yeah,
right? So-
board oversight.
Gotcha. So again, if there's an IDA academy that comes up again, I'll share it with you guys. I know some of you had signed up for one at Binghamton, then it got canceled. It was
But then they did reschedule it, and I went.
You went to it, Archie. Did you find value in it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're valid. I think they're right. So again, especially for a person like me who had zero experience with what IDAs are supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it was probably just about a year ago.
Yeah, good.
So we do have some work obviously still to do on this, and I would like to just leave it on the agenda, I think, for the next several months, and I can just continue to update you as we kind of work through it, with an idea of, by the end of the year, we have some of these recommendations, their current status, at least in progress or fully completed. I think that's easily attainable.
That worked for you, Brian?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Good job.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll move that to old business, and we're gonna move the pilot legal bills off after this discussion. But I did want to make sure, as you guys remember in last month's meeting, John Axtell did a good job of working with our auditors, and in that process, one of the things they asked, if there's any bills with our major creditors, it says Comerschengo has any outstanding liability. Came back, we had some outstanding liability of $65,000 in legal bills, 64 and change, from Bond, Schoenig, and King. Shocked us, made me scared, because I thought, oh my God, the idea is gonna have to pay $64,000 worth of bills, especially for pilots that had not been completed, i.e. Paint Solar and other ones where we've done work but hadn't received any revenue. Thankfully, we found out that the in just their accounting, in which we've asked them to change, our auditors are required, that we're viewed as the payor in their system because the pilot hasn't been completed. But once the pilots are completed, the process works that they bill the paid solar applicants. That's who pays their legal bill. That's the way it's been structured. So I want us to think about the fact that we've worked with Harris Beach Merta, because I met these guys and they've got these different ways of doing things. They're probably a little more assertive or aggressive as a municipal law firm. And Bond Schoeneke's King is more like they're more passive. They wait for us to come to them. But I also want to make sure I recognize that, every time I pick up the phone, the meter's cooking at Harris Beach Merta. And right now, Bond Schoeneke's King has done $65,000 worth of work for our IDA without sending us a bill. If Payne Solar doesn't happen, or even if it happens, they've done all that work and not sent out a single bill of wow. So I just want to make sure we recognize the contribution they make to our community. And I think it's important for us. It was very important for me as I contemplate how we manage our legal services for something like what we're going to talk about in executive session, our contracts and things like that. So as we contemplate that, they probably contribute more than any other single entity with that kind of support.
And we place a lot of value on their support. I know that they're very responsive.
Yes.
Tyler says they're flawless with their pilot work. And they're very, Tom Clifford and those guys do great. I've been less because I've not seen them be as assertive, and they're not as knowledgeable in other areas, and they don't tend to hand this up to other experts. They tend to try to handle it all themselves, and so that's okay. What we use them for primarily, they're outstanding at, and they don't bill us. So I just want to make
So,
sure.
yeah, and to be clear on that, just make sure everyone understands, when the pilot applicant signs that application, they now become responsible for those legal bills. So there's two types of legal bills. One, that's ours. We call them, say, help us with this thing. There's another after that point forward. So if the pilot never went through and there's money left on the table, we're not on the hook for it. They have to go after the person who signed the agreement. So we're not really responsible for that 64. In fact, out of that, it was like $2,200. We just need to change the paperwork that goes to our accountants. Our auditors don't say that we're responsible for 64, and we're responsible for 22. And so we'll clean that up, but just so that clear.
And I get all that. That's exactly right, John. But they do all the work for us. They're not doing anything.
Yeah, no. And they're taking on that risk.
We're picking the phone up.
And then if they don't get paid, they've taken that risk on.
Sure.
On
The
behalf of-
meter's ringing because Tyler picks the phone, not because somebody from Payne Solar is picking the phone. I just want to make sure we recognize that.
Sounds good.
All right, old business. The East Main Street building, we're going to talk about that in executive session. We have potential lease agreement with them, and so we'll talk about that then. And the vacant property grant, Tyler has submitted that for us, so we will wait to hear from them. That is about being able to supply grants to people who have vacant apartments in our municipalities. Micro Enterprise Grant is an open-ended grant. Frankly, there's so many things going on that we have time to apply for that, and we will, but it has not been applied for now. The good news is that some of the other grants that Tyler has put out there, specifically as we've applied for the strategic planning grant. I know that's not on here, you haven't heard about that yet, but that strategic planning grant that we applied for, Tyler's had 7, or closed yesterday. Did you get 8 or 7?
Total of 9.
Total of 9, so we got 2 more yesterday. 9 different consultants to help us figure out that $200,000 strategic planning grant. Again, I'm going to give Todd a tremendous amount of credit. We paid a consultant $7,000 for our visitor economy and got 6. And so he's done a great job being able to utilize our resources here and not spend our money to be able to get a tremendous response. We'll start to uncrack those and we'll bring them to you guys going forward. So I'm looking forward to that. And I don't want to bite off more than we can chew, because if we get that vacant property grant, we get that micro enterprise grant, we are the administrators for those grants. And so we might have to contemplate how we do that, because there's work involved in that. And then if you're working the strategic planning grant, what we've asked Tyler and I to do, and we'll present to you guys at the beginning of the year, what are the 3 primary things that we're going to try to achieve in each of these areas, right? Because otherwise we're going to try to boil the ocean and we're not going to get anything done, right? So we need to kind of hone that in, because we do have, thankfully, a lot of things going on. I think hybrid wind can come off. John has explained to that the accounting a few different times. And I apologize because I don't want to go too much over, but there were a couple of things that we didn't have time to add. We talked about Chobani until you came in. You had just asked if there was any update because we had time. The Chobani plant is in the process of being leveled, and in the process of leveling it, we need to figure out what they want to do with it going forward. It's related to the water study that we're trying to figure out how to do in creating a water district between the three municipalities. So that's open right now. Another one that I've heard some questions about, RC called me on, others have approached him about, there's been some conversations around what we keep calling the cottage bakery building, the fact that Deja Brew in there, she's putting out, things on Facebook, she's looking to do pop-ups in there. Everybody understands exactly what's going on there. That building has been something that we've tried to deal with since I started 3 years ago. We lose approximately, John Axton could probably correct me, but between the taxes that we pay and our bills that we pay and the rent that we sometimes collect, we probably lose about $25,000 a year on that building. We have $300,000 worth of debt that we have out there on it between the mortgage and the loan that we've taken out. It was intended to be an incubator, and there's not a single business that's incubated out of it. In an effort to sell it the first time around, we followed all of our real property disposition rules, and we didn't get any bids on it. We then went to try to figure out a different proposition. Once you've done that, you can figure out what's best for the community. We tried to figure that out, and we've been unable to do so. Since then, that's entertainment conversations with Giovanni, and put the chamber over there potentially as a home, multiple things. Give it to Kate, sell it to her if she wanted to keep that business and have that flea market environment, none of which could come to fruition for the good of the community. We still have a fiduciary responsibility to do something with that building because we're burning money for our DCC. And so we're gonna go through the process again of putting out an RFP. Building's still worth $200,000. We've had a lot of people, we've had at least 3 or 4 people show interest in that building, at least 4 people, realtors, developers. We haven't put out an RFP. So the DCC hired a consultant to help us put out an RFP and craft an RFP to say, this is what we got, this is what's going on. That will go out in next week, Ty?
Yes.
As soon as we can. Because right now, what happened to accelerate the need to do something with that building was Kate Taft, the primary tenant, the only one that we had a relationship with, technically told me she was going back to work at Gate Cole. She gave me 30 days notice, I'll be gone. And so I got all these other people in there that are subletting from her that are now coming to me. Missy Beers has the ceiling come down in her place. She can't get her landlord to respond. There's no place to have coffee now, of course, when coffee opens up and other things. But in an effort to try to, help people, we allowed Missy to pay the same rent that Kate was paying, her portion to open up temporarily, to open up Deja Vu, which keeps the book place open, which helps Lenny paint the sneakers in there. And we're just trying to help people keep open through the holidays so they can get a plan. I told them I would like to give them 90 days notice post-closing, but John Axtell rightfully pointed out, that's going to be up to the owner when it's closed. So I'm going to try to give them 90 days notice from the purchase agreement. So, or the intent, whatever we might do, as much notice as I can. Missy cannot be more appreciative of the help that we've tried to provide them. The others that never had a relationship are very angry with us because somehow they feel like we're trying to harm them. And so I've asked them to see, because again, right now it was like there were multiple keys. The building was open 24 hours a day. We had cats and dogs in restaurants. So it was an interesting setup, and I'm trying to get it all fixed. So anything that you hear out there that we're giving the building away, we're selling it for less than cost, we are not. We are going to do what's best for our community and what's best for our organization, and we're going to make the right fiduciary responsibility based upon the DCC Finance Committee. And what's best based on this RFP. I'm confident we'll do what's right for them soon. So anything else you've heard or seen, I know there's been a lot of comments out there, that's what's happening.
And essentially, the process that you're looking at to liquidate the building sounds very similar to the process the city of Norwich uses to deal with their tax foreclosure properties.
It's all written out in our bylaws. There's no, and so somebody would ask me, why do you have to do another RFP? Because in my mind, there's been too much time that has passed. Conditions are different than they were 2 years ago. I feel a responsibility to make sure that the world hasn't changed. 2 years ago, I couldn't get somebody to look at that building. Now I've got realtors calling us, saying, can I walk in here? Yeah, you can. Okay, so that's where we are. Last one, before we close out, then ask to go into executive session. Very potentially exciting opportunity, a woman named Kim Hoffman-Gorman, previously from Norwich, 1993 graduate. This is an executive with Velcro International, has reached out, so not confidential, she's reached out to ask. She's been tasked with onboarding 1,500 jobs into the United States. She's looking for locations to be able to do that. She has a significant bias to do it in Shenango County. And again, unlike some of the others that we've gone out and on wild goose chases on, that I've done on my tenure, we've attempted to vet that. We've introduced you to Omar Sanders from Empire State Development, and he has said that this is a very real opportunity. And so we're going to contemplate how we might entertain that. There's this big project going on regionally called Velocity, which is how to accelerate the velocity of our economic recovery. That Chobani site is being considered as part of that application, which is tied to tens of millions of dollars of grants. And Velcro is a potential candidate to come here, is being considered as well. So there's something there. It's not fake. It's not fake. Sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good thing.
Well, it's not Ebola, or whatever that was called. Yeah, whatever that was called. It's not me, like, just being Pollyanna. Somebody really has that.
But we're open, thank you. Two largest manufacturers.
Be cool.
Be awesome.
Okay, upcoming events, you got a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that.
Mr. Burton's recognition tomorrow night.
Yeah, come celebrate Brian. I mean, I'll get talk a little just briefly about it. We won't take we'll take just a minute to, appreciate all of our members. Because again, we had an event last night, up at Country Club, North Wealth Management hosted an event. They hosted an event where they bring in 120 of their clients. It's open to all the chamber members, but there were probably 10 of us there. And they give us a chance, they give an educational thing to their clients, but then they give us a chance to speak about things that the chamber is doing, things that we're working on out in the community, which is tremendous opportunity because, they actually, and they pay a bunch of money to do it. And so because of people like that, I guarantee you two more members will join. And so people like Marcy and Brian and people that this IDA board is a perfect example of active and engaged. Luke will get joined the Chamber of Commerce, and that doesn't have to. He's going to have, he can talk to me anytime he wants to on the board. But when people do that collectively, it just makes the organization stronger. Like people like Frank and RC reaching out, and RC was real tentative to come on board till he kind of believed in what we were trying to do here. Makes a huge difference because this job, and Jeff and Shane can tell you, these jobs are hard. People always want to tell you why you can't get stuff done. And the more people like Brian and others and all of you that sign up and say, you can if y'all try working on things together. You can't get everything done. You can get a couple. We're going to talk about that a little bit tomorrow. So Brian, come with you guys. Plus you get to have a couple of beers, and Gary will buy the beers, and Nino's will put on the food. It'll be a great event. I'll put a cowboy hat. You have a cowboy hat on, Brian.
Boots.
Right. I will.
Film at 11.
There you go. So we got a bunch of superintendent summits coming up. That's a really cool one. We're meeting the CEOs of the largest employers in the area. This time they want to talk to superintendents and find out what do they got going on and how can they help. Amazon Hub, those rest of those things, manufacturers luncheon. We're going to honor Raymond. You're going to see that. That's very cool. They're very excited. I think it's funny because I looked at some of the things because we again consider who and how we honor our employers here. And sometimes we take our largest, like the Carries and MVTs and the Raymonds, we take them for granted. I look at all these other honorees in these different roles, not that they're not incredibly important, but how do we not recognize the fact that we've got an international employee at Golden Artist College, and we should be doing those things. So we're excited, and by the way, they're excited too, so it does matter to them that they're being recognized. So again, put it on your calendar. That's what we got going on.
Super. How about a motion to adjourn Or do you want to do that after we do executive
We
session?
should do executive session.
Entertain a motion to go into,
Take any action.
entertain a motion to go into executive session. We will not be taking any action after executive session.
Contract negotiation.
Contract negotiation.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session to talk about contract negotiations, and we do not expect to take any action.
Full seconds. We'll vote.
Bird eye.
Kalia, aye.
Crawford, aye.
Bullseye.
Woodford, aye. Carries. We're in executive session.
Thanks.
Cameron?